Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the moderator of the next session, Meurmishvili.
Hello, hello. That was an impressive pronunciation of my Georgian last name, so I appreciate that, whoever said that. Very nice to see you, everyone. Thank you for being here. We have an excellent panel today, or at this moment. EU enlargement, is this, are we moving towards a reality or not? That would be the basic question that we'll explore. The panel is very impressive, and you will see it yourself. It's and before I call the panelists on the stage, two polls I want to give you a heads up on. The first one will be, it would be wonderful if you can just answer the poll question before we start the discussion to sort of set the stage up for it. Second one will be specifically about Ukraine, and I will prompt you just before the poll will be up on the for you to vote on. So with that, and also please don't forget to think about the questions. You can submit your questions as well as raise the hand. So I will, about 10 minutes towards the end of the session, I will ask you to pose questions if you have any. And with that, I would like to introduce the panelists. I would like to call Elmedin Konaković on the stage first. He's the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Okay, and since we have a limited time, I was just prompted to invite you all to the stage at the same time, so please come in. Nemanja Starović, who is the Minister of European Integration of the Republic of Serbia. Welcome. Sebastian Kurz, former Chancellor of Austria. Thank you very much for being here. Oleksandr Korniyenko, who's the Deputy Speaker of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, and Růžička, who's the Chief External Affairs Officer with the PPF group. So this is what I meant when I said that we have a very impressive panel. And we're looking at the poll questions. So the poll question was, do we have a tally or not yet? That's a question for the producers. But before we get the responses, one thing that, as I said at the beginning, we'll try to explore a couple questions that are very important to this discussion. The EU is definitely at a pivotal moment at this moment, and it seems like the enlargement is more of a geopolitical decision than anything else. So we'll try to get the answers to the question, is EU ready to enlarge? Are the tools that the EU offers to the candidate countries realistic to help them accelerate their reforms process? And are the candidate countries serious and ready to get on this path? So I think the answers are still coming in. Can we have a tally of this or not yet? So it's very interesting. I don't know if you're seeing the responses to it, but we're seeing some of the responses come in, and very interesting. Maybe we'll see that later, but idea was to have the answers and then come to you. So I would like to start with Elmedin. So Bosnia and Herzegovina has been trying to, or has wanted to become the EU member for a while, became the candidate in 2022. And the process still seems a bit slow. What do you make of it, and why do you think that is, and what can be done about it?
First of all, thank you so much for organizing this panel and actually giving this the opportunity to talk about enlargement, which is crucial for my country, from several reasons. In the first place, economically, of course, and geographically, we belong to Europe. We are not European backyard. We are a part of Europe already, geographically. And economically, I will start with some numbers. My country exports 92 or 93% of our products, of our goods, to European Union. Now you can imagine the importance of economical side of the integration. It goes 73% directly to member states, and 20+% actually to the region, and all regional countries are candidate countries for EU. On the other side, our biggest problem is brain drain. People are leaving because in our neighborhood, actually, they have better options, they have opportunities, they have better salaries. And the third fact is that we are the country with the lowest percentage of foreign investments because of political instability. So enlargement, EU, huge, big market, 500 million people. It's really an opportunity for Bosnia and Herzegovina, which has a lot of, my country has a lot of advantages. This is geography, this is skilled laborers, this is like low costs of energy and many advantages for investors, but the market is really small. So if we integrate our market or our industries, those industries who are ready to be integrated, so that means big opportunity for investments, for better salaries, and at the end, that's actually our goal, to keep young people to stay in their countries. So it's crucial, and it's now more realistic than a few years back because, unfortunately, of Russian aggression on Ukraine. Because now EU, they woke up somehow and they realized that it's not only administrative issue, it is security, economically, and some other issues also. Now we have both sides interested in enlargement, and we do go slowly. It's slow, but it's much better than before.
Yeah, and I feel like I need to ask you about Republika Srpska. To what extent is that really slowing down the process, as you said?
This is a fact that President of Republika Srpska, Milorad Dodik, is completely controlled by Moscow's regime. He met Putin in last 14 months officially 5 times. He's proud because of that, of course. You can see that those pictures on his Instagram and other social networks. And actually that is a proof that Russia is destructive regarding enlargement, and they have malign influence through some individuals, let's say. Fortunately, we have now other parties from Republika Srpska opposition, smart enough, brave enough to understand that European Union is really a crucial goal for our country. I understand some traditional religious, cultural ties that Serbs from Bosnia and Herzegovina, they have with Russia. It's the same with Bosniaks in Turkey and some other examples. But if we talk about future, about stability, about economy, our top priority is and have to be European Union. So we have now the deepest crisis after Dayton because this guy attacked Dodik. He attacked brutally constitutional order. He actually attacked whole system. He is a fugitive in his own country. But on the other side, opposition from Republika Srpska is really smart and brave. I will repeat. Now they are that we call that X factor, like that actually is encouraging all of us on this European path.
So you're optimistic that...
I used to play basketball professionally, and I wanted to win every game, you know. We played with the strongest team in Europe, while we were actually going to play the game to win the game. That's my goal. We will do our best.
And I don't know if the answers are ranked on this poll that we did at the beginning. So Ukraine seems to be at the top. Macedonia, Albania, I should say North Macedonia, Albania, Montenegro, Moldova, and Bosnia-Herzegovina has some of the lowest numbers based on the charts that I have here. So that's why I started with you with that question.
Yeah, I actually have information. So Albania and Montenegro, they go really good now with opening and closing the chapters, with delivering these like responsibilities from the EU agenda. They have political stability, which is crucial actually for the enlargement, and that's the correct answer by me. So North Macedonia, they have other constitutional issues like we also have. Georgia, unfortunately, they have some also malign Russian influence that actually is present, and you can see what is happening there. Moldova, they escaped with the referendum actually about EU. They with the help of diaspora actually. Yes. At the end, yeah, they're still on EU path, and I think Montenegro and Albania, Ukraine, of course. These people, they are fighting for the freedom, they are fighting for the lives, and it's not easy to expect that they will deliver the laws aligned with Soviet standards.
We'll have the Ukrainian representative talk about Ukraine. But I'd like to go to Serbia now. And on the poll, as we can see, I don't know how many people voted, but Serbia, along with Belarus and Bosnia-Herzegovina, have some of the lower numbers on the poll conducted in this room here. So, The question is, it's a very blunt question, is Serbia serious about joining the EU? And the reason why I'm asking that is recently, during her visit to Belgrade, Gaja Kallas said that Serbia has to make a strategic decision to reorient itself either towards the EU or Russia and China. So how do you respond to that? Is Serbia serious to join the EU?
Well, thank you for the blunt question, and blunt question desires for a blunt answer, and my answer is definitely yes. Our strategic, not just orientation, but the strategic decisions that we have made in previous years is our wish, desire, and putting all our efforts into joining the EU. So it's not something that came out of the blue yesterday. That is the strategic choice that we have made, I may say, more than 20 years ago. And we are doing our utmost to fulfill all the necessary criteria to be able to join in the upcoming period. But, you know, one of the topics of this panel, as I understood, from the announcement is to speak about the mechanisms, the tools, the procedures, and the process of enlargement and how sufficient it is. And I believe that when it was designed back in the 90s, ahead of the Big Bang enlargement, it was designed in a sufficient way because the vision was, rightfully so, that the candidate countries will conduct the accession process in 4 or 5 years and then start contributing as a full members, but also reaping the benefits of membership. And that's exactly the experience of the Big Bang enlargement and subsequent enlargement in 2007. Yet for us in the Western Balkans, things got a little bit tricky. A lot of us here in the room probably remember the Thessaloniki summit of 2003 and all the commitments and pledges being made for the Western Balkans that we have perspective, strong, realistic political perspective of joining the EU. Yet that was in 2003. And just imagine that some baby was born during the Thessaloniki summit somewhere in the Western Balkans. Doesn't matter, Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro. And that baby now is a young man or a woman of 22 years. And throughout whole of his or her life, the only thing that he or she knows is the country is on the road to becoming the part of the European Union. And you can imagine how much that issue became irrelevant to those young people. Most of them are neither pro or contra, or for or against, but they don't find that relevant. And our task, whoever is involved in the process, is to reinvigorate it. But having said that, you know, I must also say that we recognize that there is some kind of renewed momentum. Right now, it took more than 3 years after the Russian invasion of Ukraine for that momentum to build up in the European institution, first and foremost. And now we see it. Now we can experience it. But what I would really be glad to see, to know, to understand is that we are all, as a candidate countries, able to utilize that momentum. And that is not the case now. So we would like to see the leveled playing field, to see the merit-based approach that applies to each and every of the candidate countries, and for all of us to get a realistic chance that if we are, according to this merit-based approach, able to do our homework, all the tasks that are in front of us, that it will be eventually rewarded with full membership.
Let me ask you about the gas then. So merit-based, you say, and sharing some of the similar values, maybe in this case economic values. So most of the European countries have stopped or almost stopped taking in Russian gas, which is a different case with Serbia. Do you think Serbia is on the path of diversifying or getting away from this dependency from Russia?
Oh, thank you for that question. We have been doing a lot on diversifying, actually, in the last 10 or so years. But you know, we are a small landlocked country. We don't have seaports. We don't have LNG terminals. The only gas that we can get right now is Russian gas. On top of that, some of the gas from Azerbaijan, and we're increasing the capacities for importing Azerbaijani gas. And that's all in all. So from 100 dependency on Russian gas, we have lowered that to around 80%. But you know, it takes a lot to invest in infrastructure. with the interconnections, and it takes a lot of time. And I will give you just one example, without putting a blame to anyone else. But we started with our project of constructing the interconnection between Serbia and Bulgaria that is connecting us to Greece and to LNG ports in Greece. We started in 2017 with applying for all the necessary licenses and permits here in Brussels. And you know how much time did it take to obtain all the permits and licenses? So much time that we actually started digging job in January 2022, 1 month prior to Russian invasion over Ukraine. So when you need 5 years to get the licenses and permits, it's not just up to our will to diversify or not diversify. But if you allow me just to say additional 2 sentences about this enlargement process and how does it look like. You know, it was designed back in the 90s, it was working back then, but right now it is not working and we need to reinvent it a little bit, you know, because the way it is designed, it could take forever. Because you have at least 75 different stages in the accession, where you need the full consensus of 27 member states. Opening chapters, closing chapters, interim benchmarks in certain occasions, and so on. So just multiply 75 by 27, and you see that each and every of the candidate countries has potential 2,000 hurdles, where some internal political issues in any member states may tie in, or bilateral issues between the neighbors.
Yeah, but that's not only, so to be the devil's advocate here, it's not just the slowness of the process and continuous hurdles that the countries need to overcome, but it's also performance of the countries, whether it's democratic rules, media, I don't know, treating minorities, all kinds of other topics that the countries are responsible for.
Yes.
In some cases, those...
The bar has been raised so high that at least 1/3 of the EU member states right now would not be able to surpass it. I think it's a frank assessment.
So let me...
Not.
Thank you very much for that. And let me come to you, Sebastian, as the former Chancellor of Austria, as well as the current EU member country. Do you think the enlargement at this point is realistic? Are we talking about something that's just very tangible and right here, or are we talking about something that's going to happen? Like a colleague mentioned, Turkey, right? Since 1999. So what are we looking at from your perspective?
First of all, thank you very much to GLOBSEC that enlargement is discussed here, because I think that there was a lot of focus on enlargement in the past, and then it disappeared from the agenda. Now with Ukraine, it's a little bit back on the agenda, but not as it was. And I think that's the first point that is very problematic, because it has something like over-promising and under-delivering in the end. If you ask me, from my perspective, the enlargement process at the moment is a big mess. I remember when I was foreign minister at the age of 27, so in all the debates about enlargement, and I was pushing a lot in these days to bring the countries from the Western Balkans in the European Union, in all these debates about enlargement, I was told from politicians and from bureaucrats in Brussels that it's all merit-based. Yeah? So there's a clear set of rules, there's a clear set of expectation, there's a process, the countries are the partners within that process, and in the end it's merit-based, it's not a political decision at all. I have the impression that at least with Ukraine, things have changed, and I don't want to comment if it's good or bad, it's just the fact that it has totally changed. So, and when we look at some of the debates in Brussels on progress on the enlargement process, of course it was always a political debate, and there were some people on the table with stronger ties to a country in favor and others more skeptical and against. And now if you look at Serbia, the question of gas comes up. I don't know what the question of gas has to do with the enlargement process. So from my perspective, things have changed a lot, and it is a big mess. So I think, and that was said before, that in many of the countries, enlargement isn't a big issue among people anymore because they don't really know if it's real or if it's
So how can
just
we
a
change
process
that
that's never going to end. So I think, to be honest, if you ask me, the European Union should be much more honest to its partners and to countries in the neighborhood. And I think it's much better to have an honest approach, even if that means, no, we will never have Turkey in the European Union, for example, than to be in kind of a process that's not going to lead anywhere. So from my perspective, of course, the Western Balkan countries should be part of the European Union, and I haven't changed my mind on that. And from my perspective, there are countries where I think they will be never part of the European Union, like Turkey, for example. I don't see that this is a real process, but I think the most important thing is to have an honest approach, and I tell you why. Because the European Union has also good other models for partnership, for cooperation in many areas that can be attractive as well. So I think being not honest with the partners and the neighbors is more problematic than going in a different direction. Mm-hmm. And last point from my perspective, I think especially in the Western Balkans, I hear many complaints in the last few years that China is more influential, that some of the parties are leaning more towards Russia, that Turkey has gained influence. Look, if there's a gap, somebody will fill the gap. And exactly. my perspective is that if there's not enough focus from the European Union, if there's no real process going on, if there is no light at the end of the tunnel, then we should not be surprised that others are coming in and gaining more and more influence. If you complain about Chinese investments in the Balkans, it's not because everybody is waiting for China there. It's just because of the Chinese are going to invest and Europeans
want to invest.
Do not invest at the same amount. So that's it.
Yeah. I do have a follow-up for you, but I would like to remind the audience about the second poll question that I announced at the beginning. It's about Ukraine. So if you see the question, please do start answering so we have a response before we move to Ukraine. So Sebastian, I would like to ask you about Ukraine. Do you think so? There's a widespread view that Ukraine, as a member of the European Union, would provide security to the European Union and prosperity, added prosperity to the bloc. Do you think that? Do you think the decision on Ukraine's membership, EU membership, should be guided on the merit-based or more strategic outlook for the European Union down the road? No, I'm sorry. It's a question for Sebastian still.
Okay.
You, yes.
Okay. So let me start, and then probably my colleague is much better in answering these questions. But from my perspective, I think the most important thing is that Ukraine has a good future, and that we find a way to end the war. We find a way to end the war in a way that is good for Ukraine. Yeah, I think we are in a terrible situation because the war has been lasting by far too long. I have many friends in Ukraine suffering because of the Russian aggression. So I hope, to be honest, that in the end there's a solution on the negotiation. That there's a negotiations and a solution, but a positive outcome for Ukraine that can also be supported from the leadership, but also from the people. And of course, questions like how the cooperation with EU will look like, NATO membership, yes or no, all these questions will be on this table. So my feeling is, talking about Ukraine, there is much more to solve at the moment than just the question, how is the relationship with the EU? In the Western Balkans, it's much easier because at the moment there it's just the question, how is the relationship with the EU? Yep. So I think it's difficult to compare, and I think there's a lot that the EU has to offer, and a lot of support is needed from the European Union. But also here, I think it's good to be honest, because if it's not an option, in the end, it's not good to work with the carrot. That's my feeling.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So the poll results are back before 2035. Ukraine will join the EU. That's 49% of whoever voted in this room. That's what they're saying, which is a very clear indication that there is a lot of goodwill towards Ukraine. But there are also questions, of course, both about merit and about the timing of this decision. So from your perspective, can your country, and we of course everybody realizes that there is a war going on and the reforms process may not be as fast as you may want it, but can you still deliver some of the reforms that the EU has been asking Ukraine as other candidate countries? And is there anything that EU can do to help accelerate that process?
First of all, thank you for this invitation. It's very important panel, I think, and a very important panel in terms of presentation Western Balkans, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Serbia, Ukraine, and I think we only haven't Moldova, and it's also important to have that here because it's very big threats to their future and to our future as particular also. Yes, I will promote your this think about changing view from the Brussels, from countries, from capitals, from totally merit-based approach to totally political approach. And we understand that on summer of 2023, it was political decision about accession, all of us. But next, once more, we have a merit-based approach because it's not about Brussels, some Brussels dreams about ideal society and ideal reforms. It's what our population necessary. It's economical reform, it's open markets, it's understandable thing for our people in Ukraine. They all want to live in open society, in open economy, in open, single market economy, etc. If we talk about key reforms like judicial reform, for example, it's also necessary about our people. Of course, we need to observe all our conditions, circumstances, war condition. But one example, I'm a member of national negotiation team on behalf of Parliament. I'm representing Parliament here, and we are first country who include to work in negotiation teams, 36 teams, MPs from Parliament. We have more than 200 MPs in these working teams. And every screening in Brussels, my colleagues know what is it, screening, our MPs go into Brussels, sit and hear and to make marks. Why we do it? Because we understand that next time to adoption legislative, it can be discussions. But while we start to include MPs on this stage, on this level, we will have not such big discussion in society through inside Parliament, because we understand that some adoption of some reforms and some regulations from EU will be painful for economy, for agriculture sector. It's a big issue about Ukrainian agriculture in general, and we have one panel only about agriculture in EU and about agriculture from Ukraine side. But all in all, we think that we will be fast. We have now, I will show you two figures. First of all, we have more than 75% of adoption of association agreement right now. We signed it in 2016. For 10 years, it's not bad result, and we're still working on this agenda. And secondly, we have a brilliant Ukraine facility plan from Brussels, from Commission. It's plan, we change reforms to money, and we also now we have some, local problems with timetable, but all in all, we adopt 100% of this plan of Ukraine facilities for last 1 year. And it's also reforms that are necessary in the future to acquis. It is part of acquis. It will be part of acquis in the future. That's why, you know, more existential. We are first convocation in Ukrainian history in parliament who has sit over time, and because of war we can't promote election. And for this day we about 2 years sit over time, 2 years. And we have consensus inside our parliament that we need to spend this time with useful for Ukraine. And now it can be only 2 points, support of military, army, some reforms for army, money for army, and reforms for accession EU. And I can show you agenda of my next plenary, 80% of drafts about EU integration.
No.
This EU flex.
So from the parliament standpoint, that's understandable that you're adopting laws, making sure that acquis adopted at least. How about the implementation? So you refer to war and the resources that the war requires. Is it slowing down that implementation process as well? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, your mic. They need to change your mic.
It's special for Ukraine, thank you. Yes. I think it's not Russian do it.
Well,
Did it? No? Okay.
You got the big guns.
Okay. Two examples. First of all, about economic part. Of course, we need to restart and to rethink about our economy, because we have agriculture, raw economy. It's not something good for you, I think. We need to promote food precision and precision of energy from our agriculture raw. And we work on that very hard. We open possibility to export biogas, for example. And now we make very big national project about giving credits and different money to this agriculture company who can't product biogas, not only this corn and what grains that we can export gas to Europe. It's good news. But on the other hand, of course, one sort of country in ruins, and we in totally broken, and we need to recognize this plan of Ukraine accession like something of Marshall Plan, something that will help us to rebuild country. We all understand it should be building back better. We don't need to restore old metallurgical factories from 19th century. We need to restore something new, something green, and something that will help to Europe, because we want to be responsible member and we want to be responsible country of post-war period. On the other hand, of course, issue of implementation is all-time issue of public administration. We have brilliant system of public administration with local authorities, with public servants, more than 300,000 people, because we're a big country. Now we work on 2 things, to give to them good condition to work, salary and different education, possibility to development. On the other hand, we work on structural reform of our public service to cut part of unnecessary thing. We have a very huge level of decentralization of digitalization right now. It's one of the things that we can share with you also, because we know that over-regulated, it's one of the symbol of EU, but we want to share with you our evidence in terms of digitalization, how we can replace people from process, and not only from front of services, from the state, but also from the inside services, because 21st century, and we all should to think about artificial intelligence and someone, more future things, not about people who sit in some office and take some paper and go to next office. We fight in good terms. We fight with this in Ukraine, and I think it's one of our key fundamental arguments that will help us to implement. On the other hand, of course, it's one last comment. I think it's more close to Western Balkans and to Ukraine, to Moldova. We need to promote what is EU through our population. Because in general, people understand that it will be some, good things. We will all have 2,000 euros. I ask them why 2,000, why not 5,000. They said, EU, it's not a rich company. They will give to us 2,000 euros to anyone. We need to promote idea what is open Europe, how it works, what will be your rights, what will be your responsibilities, what is it Euro citizenship. It's not issue for country who are already members, because for population it's something that you already have. But it's issue for our next generations. If you talk about 2035, if you start right now with children, after 10 years they will understand it.
Yeah. Jan, I want to come to you now as the. Can I say that you're the only private sector only investor, at least on this panel, right? To be more accurate. So you invest in most of the countries.
In all of them.
All of them. There you go. Even better. Do you think, from your perspective, that these countries are ready, or are on the right path to be very soon ready for the European Union? And I have to ask you, I have to ask you that poll question that we started with. Who do you think should be first?
I think we are still nice on this panel. And me being, private businessman, manager of our company, that not only in these 4 countries, but if we say that Central Eastern Europe is 20 plus countries, we are every single one of them very happy, from Finland to Odessa and Dnipro and Moldova. So I think that Nemanja was absolutely right. You cannot sell to people, to citizens, to voters, acquis communautaire. 20 years, summit after summit, convention after convention, and first political, then merit, then as Edi Rama already, and it's already 3 years, we maybe shall start a war in Western Balkans, so then they will take us, seriously. It's absurd. Ukraine is part of Europe. There's no doubt about it. What is the largest army in Europe? Ukraine, for sure. Then second, Poland. The largest growth in Europe. Poland, Romania, let's call it former Yugoslavia, because of Serbia, Croatia, etc. This is a growth machine. There is no longer, we are the new guys that you shall contempt us. So I think that it needs to be speeded, or as Sebastian rightly say, okay, let's have a frank conversation that 27 is enough, and then let's find some different arrangement, because otherwise everybody will look stupid. And those politicians in not only Western Balkans, but Ukraine and Georgia, who are basically supporting this, then they will be decapitated by their own electorate, because it won't be sexy anymore. So we are a retail company, we are not defense contractor, and retail is good in one thing, that you have better data than politicians. I understand why in Serbia it's going down, 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 because people need to see fruits. I still a little bit hope, that actually Macron's idea of European political community will be sort of like mezzanine, some first step. Okay, let's meet, let's give them something. Honestly, 75 chapters, and yes, you spoke about minorities and rule of law, etc. Great. We have populists inside the European Union as well. I don't see them in Ukraine. I don't see them in Yugoslavia so much, like, in some Western old-fashioned European democracies. So I think that we need to have first very frank conversation. Do we want to be bigger than 27? If yes, then it's definitely more geopolitics.
Isn't that conversation delayed? Because we have all these countries that have been promised or are candidates. Then, if you ask me, it's a late conversation to have at this point, because countries are getting ready. Countries have been asked to modify, reform.
Better late than never.
Better late than never. Because, we play this game with Turkey. It happened already. And when we talk about Serbia, so who is our competitor we own? Telecommunication bank, etc. Our competitors are not Russians and Chinese. They are our competitors. Number one competitor is Austrians. In Bosnia, who is our competitor? Germans and Italians. So sometimes we are playing this merit game, because not now that people in Brussels would believe in merit game, but it's a way how to postpone things.
So wanted to ask you something else, but we're running out of time. So let's take some of the questions from the audience. And one of the questions relates directly to what you just said. So do you think that decision of further enlargement should be based on geopolitics more than economic factors? So I guess you and Sebastian are saying that it should be either or. Right now we're stuck in
No. Geoeconomics, let's connect it. It's absolutely fine. And yes, economy is part of geopolitics. I would say not play the game about merit and 75 chapters.
I would say it's always a political decision. So
Yes.
let's be honest, let's be frank, and say what it is. Yeah, it's a political decision, and of course there should be some guidelines, and there should be merit-based approach, of course. But in the end, it's a political decision. So if you don't want, as you just said, if you don't want to be a club that has more than 27 member states, you have to say it.
Yes.
Yeah. If you found out on the way that probably for the Balkans there's a future, but not EU membership for Turkey, then it's a fair approach to discuss with them what is the right way to handle it and what's the right approach in order to work together in the future. I think that makes much more sense than to be in a process and at the same with no ending, and at the same time complain that the appetite for enlargement is going down in these candidate countries.
So
we have now this risk, this threat about position of our neighbors, you know, and I think it's geopolitical factors very important. But Brussels and country members, we think in Ukraine you should to find some solution for situation while geopolitical start to be stalemate, thing. Because it's not only about Ukraine, it's also about North Macedonia. We remember it. It can be about any country. And all of us have neighbors, and sometimes these neighbors, are very good. But so some historical things between neighbors can be stalemate on this way. Of course, for us also important to make together this an economical, development. Because for Ukraine it's issue of rebuilding after war, but on other hand it's issue of building, for example, this weapon industry for EU, because Ukraine can be part of it also. That's why we about both criteria, but we need help with geopolitical criteria, I would say.
Yeah. Are there any questions from the audience? I will take 3 questions at the same time, if you don't mind that, please. So the microphone goes to gentleman here, lady in the 3rd row, and please, we have 4 minutes left. Please be as brief as possible.
I will try to be very brief.
And introduce yourself as well.
Okay, I'm Zoran Olevski, former defense minister and ambassador of North Macedonia. My country is waiting to get started negotiations for more than 20 years in EU. We have changed our name, we have changed constitution. Now we ask again to do something, and we have offered, let's start our negotiations to EU, and the day before we enter to EU, will change the constitution. Because we spoke about merit-based political issues, there was some EU, from the Commission assessment, they were for 2023 last year published. Serbia had something like average grade 315, Macedonia 311, and the rest were behind us. And we are still,
please
based
ask
on
the
merit
question. We have
base.
3 minutes and 3 more questions.
How do you see enlargement process? Is it going to continue to be, because we need to have a not political, vacuum in the region?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. The lady in the 2nd row.
Hello, my name is Magda Fajtova. I'm a journalist from Respect Weekly. First, I would like to ask if it's a wise decision to accept countries that will further, let's say, disrupt the already not really stable relationships between members of the European Union, and if maybe there is a need to to do some changes perhaps in the decision-making process. And I have just one more remark for Mr. Starović. You can maybe ask your colleagues and friends here in the Czech Republic how to get rid of Russian gas, even if you are a small landlocked country with no access to sea and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the third question on this side, please.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
Turkey's voice is always strong. Two questions. Mr. Kurz said that this is a political decision. Perfect. We know this. If one day Austria would like to join NATO, then you have to think twice. Then Turkey is a member of NATO and has the right to stop.
Fine.
Okay.
One day. The second one.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. We have 1 minute left. We have to cut it because they have.
Look here. All those people here from the Balkans.
Yes.
And we, the Turks, we have been 500 years there. How can you separate Turkey from the history of the Balkans? How can you do it?
Yes.
I'm not from Balkans, but we have history with you also.
Thank you. So Balkans-related questions. Please, let's end 1 minute. So
the story is two-side story. No. This is two-way story. EU and Western Balkans, I think now finally we have the common goal. I will tell you just several examples. I'll be fast. Our truck drivers, private companies, they have big problems because truck drivers from Bosnia, they can stay only 90 days inside of EU. Can you imagine the owner of the biggest or the big company in Bosnia and Herzegovina having a problem because we don't have drivers because they already left there somewhere in EU, but those who are still in Bosnia, they can stay only for 90 days. We are waiting on the border with EU, yearly, all drivers from Western Balkans countries, 6 of us, yearly we spend 3,000 years waiting for the entrance in the European Union. 3 millenniums, all of us together, waiting for phytosanitary inspections, for approvals, for administrative issues. That's something that we can do together immediately tomorrow and to show that this story is really a common story. Other side is security issue. If EU, I completely agree with my colleagues, if this is a gap, if EU doesn't control this part of this region, someone else will. Can you imagine some military base inside of Bosnia, Serbia, or some other countries in, I don't know, 2, 3, 5 years. And I will finish with North Macedonia example. Last elections, my dear colleague, previous Minister of Foreign Affairs, he said, story about EU is not a winning ticket anymore for the elections. If that happens in our countries, then we should all be worried about the future of this region.
Unfortunately, we have to end it at this. Time management is more important at this point. So thank you very much for joining. It seems like the biggest message that I got out of this is, yes, enlargement would be good, but we also need to be honest about it. Sounds like it. Thank you very much.